Hello everyone, welcome back to Christopher's Game Room. Today the name of the game is Sofrnito. Sofrnito is an economic dexterity game from Zoc Verlag, and if you know anything about Zoc Verlag, their games are so unusual. Now they do have their standard Euro games, but then they have these really unusual dexterity games, including some of these guys down here. So I have probably the most common of their dexterity and their Euro games. But there's one dexterity game in particular I've been looking for a long time, but we'll mention that another day. But Sofrnito is what we're talking about today. So let me show you what this game's all about.
Sofrnito is an economic dexterity game. That sounds like a crazy idea. Well, it is, but it works. You essentially play merchants buying ingredients to fulfill recipe cards, and selling your excess ingredients for rupees. How do you do that? Well, with these nice thick poker chip style chips, which have a number on one side. They are numbered 10 through 60. To get the game set up, we first must set aside the ingredients in which we may buy. The number of ingredients we add each round varies on the player count. In a 2-player game, that number is 4, so we will always add 4 at the end of each round, regardless of how many ingredients were remaining on the board. I guess I should mention all the ingredients. First we have curry, then ginger, cardamom, chili, garlic, mint, cumin, saffron, and cinnamon, all which have their own corresponding cards. After we have set up our initial ingredients, we then must set aside the recipes. Again, this number varies depending on the player count. In a 2-player game, there will be no more than 2 available at any given time. We each get 200 rubies and your 6 chips. Now we're ready to play. Well, whomever cooked last is actually the first player, which they refer to as the head chef, and they get the pepper mill. So we will just go and give this to the blue player. So now we get to the meat of the game, no pun intended. When it's your turn, you may pick up any of your remaining chips and toss it into the marketplace. What you are trying to do is land your chip on top of the ingredient in which you wish to acquire, provided that that ingredient is available to purchase. The number on the back of the chip indicates how many rupees you are willing to spend on it. When it is your turn to toss a chip, you may toss it however you wish, at whatever you wish. The only restriction is that you may not cross this yellow border with your hand, or your chip is not going to count. If you are not interested in buying anything this round, you may try and toss your chips onto one of these other 4 areas. These 4 areas are action spaces, and we will evaluate each one of these spaces after the last chip has been thrown for the round. Oh, and speaking of chips, the amount of chips that you throw each round varies on player count, of course. Each player takes turns throwing 1 chip at a time until you've thrown all of your chips in. So in a 2-player game, we will each throw 4 chips, alternating back and forth until we've both thrown 4. And if you should so happen to throw one off the table, or out of the playing area, well, of course that counts for nothing, and you don't get it back until the end of the round. Going back to the action spaces, once all the chips have been thrown, we evaluate these, as mentioned earlier. This one allows you to throw 1 additional chip. This one allows you to draw spices equal to the first value of your chip. So a 50 chip will allow you to draw 5 spice cards, and you may keep 1. This one allows you to draw one of those recipe cards off the top of the deck that only you may complete, but you will have to keep it face down until you do complete it. And this space will allow you to become the new head chef immediately, and that might be important for how you resolve the remainder of this round. If there were ever more than 1 chip on the action spaces, whomever has the largest number wins. After we have finished evaluating those 4 action spaces, the new head chef, or the old one if no one landed on the pepper mill, will choose the order in which the ingredients will be traded. And what I mean by trading is that you will have the option to sell or buy ingredients, but not both on the same ingredient. Before we go any further, I must mention that we will only evaluate the bowls if there's actually 1 chip in the bowl. To determine this, you will have to look directly into the middle of that chip, into that little tiny circle. If you could see any small bit of the bowl, even a smidgen, it's valid. This of course applies to the action spaces as well. If you cannot see the bowl, the head chef will remove all those poker chips prior to doing anything else, as they are not valid. So to begin the buying and selling, the head chef picks a bowl, flips over all valid chips, and then adds the sum of all the chips together, not just from one color. Whatever the total sum is, any player may sell that type of ingredient for that price. For example, the blue player has a 60 chip on cumin, so any player, not just the blue player, may sell any number of those back to the bank for 60 rupees per ingredient. If the red player had a 20 chip on this as well, all players would sell it for 80, as that is the total sum of all the chips. Any ingredient you sell does not go back to the display, however, but rather a discard pile. If any player wishes to sell, you first would remove any chips you had from the bowl, if you had any there to begin with, as you cannot sell and buy on the same turn. Then, if any chips were remaining, those players would be able to buy an ingredient, starting with whomever has the highest chip left in the bowl. The price you pay is equal to your highest chip value, and not the sum of all the chips as it was with the selling phase. Also, only players that have chips in the bowl may buy, unlike the selling phase, which anyone could sell, regardless if they were in the bowl or not. Once you buy an ingredient or you decide to pass, you will have to remove your highest chip from the bowl. If there were more than one ingredient in the bowl, then, after the player with the highest chip buys or passes, we would move on to the next highest, and so forth until all chips or ingredients are gone. So you will continue in this manner till all the bowls have been resolved. Do keep in mind though that even though there may be a chip in a bowl that currently does not have any ingredients, you still need to resolve it, as some players may wish to sell their ingredients.
Okay, so let me get you some words of advice. Do not put yourself in any situation in which you have no money and no ingredients, because that will take you so long to recover from that.
To conclude the round, and starting with the head chef, you may prepare one of the displayed recipes by turning in the listed ingredients as shown on the card. You may only prepare one, even if you have the ingredients for another, but you may however complete any number of those hidden recipes, you know, the ones you acquired from this space. Oh, and those recipe cards, they are not replenished until the end of the round. The last thing we do each round is that the head chef is going to pass that peppermill to the player to his left. Even if he just picked it up with the action space, you still have to pass it. Then we're going to add more ingredients to the board and refill the recipe cards as needed. The game will be over when a player has completed his third recipe, and that is it.
Well, everyone, that was Sanfranito. Sanfranito still happens to be one of my favorite dexterity games because there's nothing like it. I mean, think about it. It's an economic game with a dexterity element. If you just look at this board and you walked by, you look at the board, it looks boring. It truly does. But when you sit down and play this game, it's just so exciting. You're throwing these chips around and, oh, I really need to get that ingredient, or hey, I need to stop you from getting that ingredient. I'm going to try to knock your piece out of the way. It's exciting. It truly is. So it's a little bit difficult to find this game, but not impossible. I think it came out in 2010, so it's uncommon. You could still buy the game if you wanted to. It just might be a little bit more on the higher end to find this game. But it's definitely exciting. If you ever get a chance to play this game, sit down and play the game. Don't look at this game and think it's boring. Like, sit down and play this game. It's truly an experience. It's definitely fun. So, with that being said, I am going to go make myself some food, because all these spices and ingredients are making me hungry. So, until next time, thank you for watching Christopher's Game Room. I will see you next time.
Hey, thank you for tuning in today. Check out my other videos and stay tuned for more Christopher's Game Room.